The restaurant that reinvented memory. Some places feed the body, others feed the soul. But once in a rare lifetime, a restaurant appears that feeds something even deeper, a memory you never lived, yet somehow recognize. This is the story of a dining room that learned to cook with nostalgia, turning forgotten moments into flavors that felt achingly familiar. In the modern world, we rush through meals without noticing them. Food becomes fuel, convenience replaces connection, and memory dissolves into the noise of daily life. Yet across the globe, whispers began circulating about a small restaurant that defied this rhythm. Diners claimed its dishes made them pause, breathe, and feel something they couldn't explain. Some said the food reminded them of childhood. Others said it reminded them of someone they once loved. And a few felt it stirred memories they could swear weren't theirs at all. To understand how a restaurant could reach so deeply into human heart, we must return to the origins of its creator. A chef who saw memory not as a relic of the past, but as an ingredient as vital as salt or flame. He grew up in a home where meals were stories, where smells carried meaning, and where taste served as a gateway to belonging. But when he entered the professional culinary world, he found kitchens obsessed with technique, precision, and innovation. Emotion was treated as an afterthought. He disagreed, and so he began to imagine a place where emotion guided technique, where personal history shaped the plate, and where guests left not with a full stomach, but with a sense of rediscovery. He wanted to create flavors that spoke to the hidden spaces of the mind, those quiet corners where longing lives in silence. His vision was gentle, intimate, almost impossible. He started small, a dish inspired by a lullaby his mother used to hum, a dessert built around the warmth of sitting near a winter fire, a broth that tasted like the moment rain begins to fall. These ideas sounded strange when spoken aloud, but once transformed into food, they carried a strange, undeniable truth. Guests began to arrive with curiosity. They left in wonder. And beneath the surface of that growing reputation, something remarkable was beginning to form, a new culinary language that would soon reshape how the world understood taste itself. As more diners arrived, the chef refined his craft with quiet determination. He listened to the stories guests shared after each meal, their childhood kitchens, their lost summers, the people they missed, the places they longed to return to. These conversations shaped his dishes more than any cookbook ever could. He wasn't chasing innovation. He was chasing recognition, the feeling of tasting something you didn't know you had forgotten. But the culinary world watched with skepticism. Critics questioned whether emotion could be engineered on a plate. Fellow chefs dismissed his work as sentiment disguised as cuisine. Some accused him of manipulating nostalgia for attention. Yet the diners kept coming, drawn not by hype but by the strange sensation that his food awakened something sleeping inside them. The restaurant grew busier, and with the attention came new challenges. Guests began arriving with expectations. They wanted to be moved, changed, transported. They wanted miracles on demand. The staff felt the pressure mounting as every table carried its own quiet hope. Could they truly deliver meaning night after night? Could a flavor crafted from memory ever be replicated with precision? The tension reached a new peak when a renowned food critic announced an upcoming visit, someone known for valuing technique above all else. Their reviews could elevate a restaurant to glory or reduce it to dust. The team felt a tremor of fear. How could they convince someone so focused on structure that the intangible mattered just as much? On the night of the critic's arrival, the atmosphere shifted. The dining room glowed softly, but the kitchen moved with careful restraint. Each dish was prepared like a whispered confession, each flavor balanced with extraordinary care. When the critic tasted the first course, the room seemed to hold its breath. The expression on their face revealed nothing. Course after course left the kitchen, each one a delicate attempt to bridge memory and artistry. But as the critic sat in contemplative silence, the chef felt uncertainty creeping in. What if the experience of memory could never translate to someone unwilling to feel? What if this entire vision, the one that shaped his identity, was doomed to collapse under the scrutiny of logic and form? By the time the meal ended, the critic had spoken only a few polite words. No hint of approval, no hint of disdain. Just a quiet nod before leaving the restaurant without fanfare. The staff exchanged uneasy glances. Without a clear reaction, they stood suspended between hope and dread. The chef, however, sensed that a deeper turning point was forming, one that would test not only the soul of his restaurant, but the very belief that food could carry the weight of emotion. The days that followed felt unbearably long. Every morning, the team scanned newspapers and food columns, searching for any sign of the critic's review. Nothing appeared. The silence grew heavier, feeding doubt that crept through the kitchen like a slow, encroaching tide. Staff whispered their fears in the walk-in. The maitre d' rehearsed explanations for worried guests. Even the chef, usually calm in uncertainty, felt the weight tightening around his chest. But beneath the anxiety lay something deeper. The fragile question at the heart of his vision. Could a dish built from memory truly be judged by conventional standards? Technique could be measured. Presentation could be dissected. But emotion, recognition, longing, these lived in places critics rarely acknowledged. And yet, they were the very essence of his craft. Meanwhile, the restaurant's notoriety surged online. Guests posted emotional stories about dishes that reminded them of people they had lost or moments they had buried beneath the rush of adulthood. Some described crying at the table, not out of sadness, but from the shock of rediscovering a forgotten part of themselves. These reactions spread, stirring curiosity and skepticism alike. Supporters celebrated his courage. Opponents accused him of orchestrating emotions rather than cooking food. The pressure intensified when an influential culinary academy announced it was considering the restaurant for a major award. Suddenly, the chef found himself at the center of a philosophical argument. Should cuisine aim to impress the mind or reach the heart? Institutions debated. Chefs argued. Writers dissected every detail of his menu. The conflict grew louder, sharper, more personal. Inside the kitchen, the strain began to show. The sous chef, trying to perfect a dish meant to evoke the feeling of waiting by a window for someone who never arrives, broke down in frustration. The pastry chef struggled to recreate the taste of home for guests whose memories varied wildly. The line cooks felt torn between replicating recipes with precision and leaning into the emotional intention behind them. The chef watched his team unravel, uncertain whether he was leading them toward breakthrough or toward exhaustion. Then, without warning, the critic returned. They arrived one evening without reservation, slipping into a corner table as discreetly as before. This time, however, the chef approached them personally, carrying a dish he had created in the critic's absence. It held no clever tricks, no experimental flair, just a quiet, honest attempt to translate a human moment into flavor. He explained nothing. The critic took a bite. A long silence followed, long enough for doubt to surge through the chef like lightning. But then something shifted. A small, almost imperceptible change in the critic's expression. Not analysis, not calculation, recognition. It was a look of someone who had suddenly remembered a moment they thought they had forgotten. The critic requested a second bite, and in that fragile, luminous instant, the chef felt the entire emotional arc of his journey bending toward an inevitable peak. One that would soon decide whether the restaurant's belief in memory had the power to reshape the culinary world. The review appeared the next morning, but it wasn't written like a traditional critique. It read more like a confession. The critic described the dish not in terms of structure or technique, but in terms of the memory it awakened. An afternoon long ago, sitting beside a window, sharing a simple meal with someone who had since slipped into the past. They wrote that the flavor did not imitate that moment. It revived it. And for the first time in years, they felt the quiet ache of remembering something precious that time had nearly erased. The culinary world erupted. Some praised the review as groundbreaking. Others called it unprofessional, accusing the critic of letting emotion override analysis. Yet the debate only amplified the restaurant's rising influence. People traveled from distant countries just to experience the dishes that stirred forgotten feelings. Food writers launched essays about the relationship between memory and taste. Chefs began exploring nostalgia in their own kitchens, inspired by the courage of someone who dared to cook beyond conventional limits. But the most profound transformation happened inside the restaurant itself. The staff, once overwhelmed by the pressure of expectation, began to understand the deeper purpose of their work. They weren't just preparing meals. They were guiding guests through moments of personal rediscovery. The sous chef found renewed confidence. channeling his own childhood memories into a broth that soon became one of the restaurant's signature dishes. The pastry chef stopped chasing technical perfection and instead crafted desserts that felt like emotional landscapes. The team felt aligned, not around success, but around meaning. And the chef, watching this evolution unfold, realized something unexpected. He had spent years searching for the perfect way to honor memory through food. Yet the true beauty wasn't in the dishes themselves, but in what they inspired: connection, vulnerability, and the sudden realization that even strangers share the same silent longings. The award from the Culinary Academy arrived weeks later. They praised a restaurant not for innovation or precision, but for expanding the boundaries of what cuisine could communicate. It marked the beginning of a new era, one where emotions were treated not as embellishments, but as essential ingredients. Standing in the now bustling dining room, the chef felt a deep, quiet satisfaction. His dream had not been about nostalgia. It had been about humanity, giving people a place to remember who they were, who they loved, and who they still hope to become. Some restaurants change how we eat. His changed how we feel. Subscribe to join the journey.